Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are strapping in for a pretty intensive look at what it means to be a family, not just emotionally, but thinking about it, well, cosmically and even nationally. We're pulling from excerpts of a really deep philosophical document, The Cosmic Family, Parenthood, Purpose, and the Nation.
Hmm.
Now, this came out of a VACCE teacher's training presentation. And for anyone not familiar, VACCE really focuses on blending ancient spiritual insights with, modern education and society.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack this worldview that honestly radically redefines the family. It frames the home not as this like soft, comfy, emotional space, but more like a demanding spiritual schoolhouse.
Yeah, a rigorous one.
Designed specifically to build the kind of moral and intellectual foundation needed for, well, good citizenship.
It's a very high-stakes way of looking at it, definitely. And what's fascinating is how the source material immediately connects everyday home life to these huge existential ideas we're talking. Souls, karma, collective responsibility.
Right.
It sort of elevates all those common daily squabbles into something much more purposeful. It basically suggests that the friction you might feel constantly at home, that's not failure, that's actually the architecture for evolution.
Okay, let's unpack that blueprint then.
Yeah.
The source says the household is this incredibly complex, cosmic setup where personalities are meant to be different,
Intentionally varied.
like mixing and matching.
Yeah.
You could have a master soul as a quiet grandma, or an infant soul who's actually older, or even a father soul in a mother's body.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like chaos theory for the family dinner table.
Well, it's the universe maximizing the chances for growth, you see. The pairings aren't random at all, they're quite intentional. And when the source talks about master soul versus infant soul, it's not about age in years, it's about like behavioral maturity.
Oh, okay.
So the master soul might have deep patience, long-term thinking. The infant soul may be super impulsive, impatient.
Right.
Put them together in one family and bam, the evolutionary pressure is instant and, well, constant.
To make this easier to grasp, the source uses that great analogy, the divine family of Lord Shiva. Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. Think of it like ancient psychology presented in divine figures. It's quite neat. You've got Lord Shiva, very tranquil, detached, riding Nandi the bull steady, right? Then his wife, Parvati, powerful, beautiful, often shown with a tiger, that's like harnessed energy.
Okay.
And the sons. Ganesha, wise, discerning, but also sort of childlike, riding a tiny mouse.
Mouse, yeah.
And Karthikeya, the brave, quick-tempered warrior, on a peacock.
Wow. 4 totally different, sometimes clashing temperaments all living together. That's a really strong visual. I mean, just imagine the arguments over who parked their divine vehicle where.
Exactly. And the source uses this to hammer home the point. Families thrive because they're different, not when they're all the same. They're seen as complementary forces designed to balance creation itself.
So that friction,
Yeah.
the everyday stuff, like, the super tidy parent versus the messy teenager,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually a feature, not a bug.
The idea.
But practically, how does a parent tell the difference between that productive cosmic friction
Yeah.
and just, damaging ongoing conflict? Where's the line?
That's the key insight this philosophy offers, really.
Yeah.
The friction itself. That's the spark. It drives evolution. The test is in how the family responds to that friction.
Oh.
If everyone just agrees, thinks alike, growth stops. Perfection is static, you see. Productive friction is when the conflict forces the people involved to actually evolve their thinking or their approach.
Okay.
Damaging conflict, that's when people dig in their heels, resort to ego, malice, maybe just withdraw without trying to learn anything from the opposition. The moment you see that difference, it changes everything. The messiness isn't the failure. The inability to learn patience or tolerance from the messiness, that's the failure.
That whole reframing friction as evolutionary pressure, it really shifts the whole definition of family life, doesn't it?
Completely.
We move away from family just being about emotions and comfort into what the source calls a spiritual school, and one determined by karmic design.
Yes, and this is a really fundamental concept in Indian thought. Karmic design means, well, it means every soul lands in a specific family structure for a reason, because of lessons needed from past actions.
Oh, it's not random, like you didn't just happen upon this family.
Not according to this view. You were assigned this family out of necessity. A child doesn't just need a parent. They need this specific parent to teach them, say, humility. And a parent doesn't just raise a child. They might need to learn specific patience from this particular child. The idea is that souls part ways once those lessons, those karmic debts or assignments are settled.
Wow. That makes the whole dating scene sound less like romance and more like some kind of complex cosmic contract negotiation.
Maybe a little.
The source contrasts seeking the perfect partner, which is, a big thing in modern Western culture, with needing to find purposeful partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
But hold on, isn't trying to find a perfect or at least a stable partner just rational? Trying to avoid pain and conflict, why should we actively seek out purposeful conflict?
That's a really good question. It grounds the philosophy. The search for perfection is often just a search for comfort, right? Which is static. It doesn't change. Seeking purpose means accepting that friction is necessary, because that's where the growth actually happens.
Okay.
Every relationship is framed as an assignment. And every conflict, whether it's about money, communication styles, values, whatever, that's like a question paper.
A question paper.
Yeah, interesting.
So if you're constantly fighting about the bills, the assignment isn't really about the dollars and cents. The question paper is testing your trust, maybe your communication, your shared vision for the future.
Right.
Pass the test, the relationship evolves, fail. Well, you might repeat the class, maybe in another life, maybe just in another partnership. It reframes difficulties as necessary curriculum, not just random suffering you have to endure.
This philosophical urgency then leads to a pretty blunt question the source asks. Why do we even have children? And it kind of sets aside the usual reasons beyond, carrying on the family name, support in old age, passing on wealth.
It goes deeper. The commitment here is framed much, much higher.
It really is. The source defines parenthood, quite starkly actually, as a 20-year contract of sacrifice.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not gentle language about the joys. It's presented as an honest look at the real cost of creation. It means sleepless nights, giving up personal comfort completely, endless compromises, often instantly.
That's a challenging phrase, contract of sacrifice, especially today when we often prioritize self-care, individual happiness. Accepting that level of cost takes a big mental shift. So what's the payoff for that kind of sacrifice?
Well, the payoff isn't just about raising a happy adult, though that's part of it. It's also about the maturity of the parent's own soul through the process. But the ultimate goal, it goes beyond just reproduction. The mission is described as the reincarnation of responsibility.
The reincarnation of responsibility.
Okay. We're not just making more humans. The idea is we're actively trying to build a future citizen, someone who contributes, who builds the nation. If the result of that 20-year contract is just another dependent or only a consumer, then the sacrifice, in this view, was incomplete. The mission wasn't fulfilled. Okay, so if the ultimate goal is forging this responsible citizen, then the curriculum, it starts right at home, with the very first actions of the parents. The source material is really clear on this. A child's attitude towards society. It's directly shaped by how the parents behave.
Makes sense.
For instance, if parents are always flaunting wealth, showing off material stuff, they're essentially planting seeds of ego and entitlement in the child. And that, down the line, makes for a poor future citizen, according to this philosophy.
That leads us straight into economic realities, which this philosophy seems to treat as a core subject in the homeschool.
Absolutely central.
Parents have to differentiate constantly and clearly between created wealth and inherited wealth.
Yes, big difference.
And here's where it gets practical for you listening. The source suggests actual field work to teach the dignity of labor. It's not enough to just talk about work. You have to show it. Like, take your kids on walks specifically to see people working, vendors, sanitation workers, small business owners, and talk about the value they create for the community, regardless of their paycheck size.
And that kind of exposure leads right into teaching real economics at home. This isn't just math homework.
Right.
Kids need to be involved in budgeting, understanding how the family's resources work, learning to avoid impulsive buying, recognizing that things aren't limitless. It's basically about teaching them to manage a tiny economy before they step into the big one. And this connects straight back to citizenship. The single most important lesson for national growth is teaching children to give, not take.
Give, not take.
They need to understand that contribution is a higher virtue than just consuming. The logic is simple. If every citizen learns to contribute even just a little bit, time, effort, resources, the whole nation grows exponentially.
Okay, shifting gears slightly to the moral curriculum. The source tackles that impulse many parents have, to shield kids from the messy realities of life, love, lust.
The protection instinct.
But the distinction it makes is crucial. Ignorance isn't innocence. Awareness is innocence.
That's a powerful line. Because ignorance is just temporary, isn't it? and it leaves you vulnerable. Awareness, which comes from calm, age-appropriate, informed guidance from parents. That's the real protection, the real armor of innocence, you could say.
Okay.
So parents are urged to clarify these really crucial distinctions that basically define a successful adulthood. The source specifically says, love is of the mind. It's long-term, purposeful, structural. Lust. That's of the body, temporary, transactional.
And confusing those two.
Yeah.
Philosophy warns that's what wrecks careers, families, futures.
Exactly, which means teaching patience is key, especially in a world obsessed with instant gratification.
How do you teach that?
Well, the maturity of love, according to this source, is found in purpose and stability. So the curriculum encourages kids to wait, finish your education, build a career, become self-reliant before you jump into serious relationships. Love, when it's built on that foundation of purpose and self-earned security, it becomes a stable asset, not this huge distracting liability.
Right. And as we guide them towards being self-reliant, we run smack into that classic parenting paradox. Knowing when to let go, knowing when to stop parenting so intensely.
Ah, yes. This might be the hardest lesson for parents. The warning here is quite severe. Protection must not become prison. Overparenting, it argues, smothers individuality. It kills the very survival instinct that this whole spiritual school was supposed to cultivate.
Because if you shield them from every fall, every failure,
They never learn resilience. They never learn how to face life on their own, which is why the philosophy actually endorses real-world challenges. Things like survival camps, maybe solo travel when appropriate, joining debating societies, doing social service work, things that push them. The goal is to prepare them to live alone successfully, capably, but hopefully never feel lonely.
Okay, let's explicitly connect the family structure, this micro level, back to the macro level political structure. The source sees the family as a microcosm of the nation. Parents are like the policymakers, setting the rules.
And the children are the citizens, learning how the system works, what's expected.
Right.
And this means parents have a duty to instill a really strong moral spine about contribution versus dependency. The source directly calls out what it sees as a national problem, the misuse of things like subsidies or reservations. Resources intended for people in genuine need being, well, sometimes exploited by those who could actually afford things themselves.
And that behavior, if it's learned or even just implicitly okayed at home.
It weakens the whole nation's integrity, its moral fiber.
So the call to action for citizens starts right there, in the family, restoring the dignity of contribution. And the ultimate goal for a citizen, as laid out in the source, pretty specific, aim to become taxable by age 20.
Yeah, that's a really potent, actionable target.
Why 20 specifically? What's the significance?
Well, age 20 is chosen, it seems, to directly challenge the expectation of long-term dependency that can creep in. By 20, the aim isn't just have a job. It's be financially stable and productive enough that you are actively contributing to the national budget through taxes.
It's a measure of self-reliance.
Exactly. It's a statement. I'm no longer dependent. I am a net contributor to the society that helped educate and protect me. Now, obviously, the barriers to achieving that societal, educational, economic they're huge for many. But having that as the aim, that defines responsible citizenship in this framework.
And this focus on taxation brings the whole conversation right back around to that economic curriculum we talked about starting in the home.
Precisely. We need to teach the why behind taxes. Teach the logic that taxation is actually the highest form of civic contribution. Taxes build nations, right? They pay for public services, defense, roads, hospitals, schools, environmental protection. If kids grasp this early on, they embrace the principle. Nothing is truly free. Someone, somewhere, pays for every free meal or public park. Understanding that transforms paying taxes from just, a grudging obligation into something closer to civic pride. Hashtag tag outro.
So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you listening right now, whether you're a parent or just thinking about citizenship? The core mission from this cosmic family philosophy seems clear and, yeah, pretty challenging. Love without bias, guide without controlling, and focus on raising determined contributors, not just passive consumers or dependents.
And if we pull back to the big picture, it's really a robust attempt to weave together spiritual growth with societal duty. Parenthood gets redefined. It's the spiritual mission where the family is your first classroom, basically, and the nation. That's the bigger extended school where the real tests happen, testing the resilience built in those early lessons.
Okay, and to leave you with something to think about this week, building on that idea of necessary friction. If the universe, according to this view, deliberately pairs opposites within a family, the master soul and the infant soul, the calm and the fiery to force balance and growth, Where else in your life, maybe at work or in your community, are you actively avoiding friction? Or maybe trying too hard to surround yourself only with people who agree with you? Could it be that the very conflict you're dodging might hold the key to your next level of growth personally or even for your organization? Something for you to chew on until next time on the deep dive.